Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Off-Road Update. As the 2025 GNCC season returned from its traditional 2-month summer break, the pits were abuzz of controversy, as a mid-season rule change had everyone talking about what it would do to the outcome of the championship season. Would it help or would it hurt? You decide. The 10th round of the season was held in Newburgh, West Virginia for the Buckwheat 100 GNCC. During the summer break, an announcement was made that instead of the normal XC1 class starting on row 1 and the XC2 class starting on row 2, that the XC1 and XC2 riders that were in the top 20 overall in points would start on the first row. All remaining XC1 and XC2 riders would start on row 2. This means that points leader Ben Kelly, who typically starts with a time gap over points rival Grant Davis, would now be starting dead even with the XC2 points leader. As the green flag went up kicking off the 3-hour afternoon race, it was the 2021 champion Kelly grabbing the hole shot with Davis and Craig DeLong in tow. Brody Johnson would slide out exiting turn 2, while off camera a few seconds later, Davis would slide out himself, letting the rest of the field go by. Davis would remount ahead of Johnson as the race was underway. A few miles off the start, as the field started roughly half a lap before the finish line, it was Kelly leading the way with DeLong running in second. Caleb Russell was third ahead of Jordan Ashburn, while Stu and Grant Baylor ran 5th and 6th. Josh Strang ran 7th ahead of Liam Draper, while Ricky Russell and Gus Reardon rounded out the top 10. Davis had climbed up to 12th behind Nick DeFeo, with Mike Wachowski, Brody Johnson, and Cody Barnes rounding out the field from row 1. Nearing the end of the first full lap of racing, and it was Stu Baylor taking over the number 1 spot, as DeLong still ran in the runner-up position. Kelly had been relegated to 3rd ahead of Caleb Russell, as Ashburn rounded out the top 5 ahead of Draper and Grant Baylor. Davis had already moved up to 8th, still within 20 seconds of the lead riders. Reardon and Barnes rounded out the top 10, as Strang, Johnson, and Wachowski followed, with DeFeo after and Ricky Russell bringing up the rear after a crash left him mired in the back of the order. At the 4-mile mark of lap 3, Baylor still led the way over DeLong, with Ashburn moving to 3rd, Draper following him in 4th. Kelly had dropped to the number 5 spot, while Caleb Russell ran 6th ahead of Davis, as Grant Baylor, Barnes, and Reardon ran in spots 8 through 10. Strang, Johnson, and Wachowski were next, still with the top 10 riders. When the riders entered the field section a couple miles into the lap 4, it was Liam Draper climbing all the way up to the lead position on track. Ashburn had moved into 2nd behind the Kiwi, as DeLong ran in 3rd. Baylor, meanwhile, had dropped all the way to 4th. Davis, after being down on the start chicane, had passed Kelly to move into 5th. Grant Baylor ran 7th as Caleb Russell dropped to 8th. One mistake from any rider meant the loss of at least 3 spots on track. Barnes and Reardon rounded out the top 10 as Strang, Wachowski, and Johnson were still in striking distance of the top 5 should anything happen up front. Ricky Russell, despite missing his front fender, was next in the order, while DeFeo rounded out the top 15 on track. At the coal pit on lap 4, Draper still held the lead with a few seconds back to Ashburn in 2nd. DeLong, who had not tasted the lead in the race, ran 3rd, with Baylor still in 4th ahead of a charging Grant Davis, as the front 5 started pulling a gap to those behind. Grant Baylor moved into 6th, while Barnes had moved up to 7th, displacing Kelly to spot number 8. Reardon still ran 9th, while Strang had moved into the top 10, dropping Caleb Russell down to 11th, with Wachowski and Johnson on his rear tire. Just a couple miles into lap 5, Draper still led the way as Baylor moved back up into runner-up position, displacing Ashburn to third. The rider on the move, however, was Grant Baylor, as he was right behind Ashburn's rear wheel. Off camera at the end of the field section, Baylor would drive to the inside of Ashburn to take over the number 3 spot. DeLong ran 5th ahead of Davis, the top riders never more than a handful of seconds apart after 2 hours of racing. Barnes, meanwhile, after readjusting to getting back on a 250, moved up to 7th on track. Kelly ran 8th ahead of Reardon and Strang rounding out the top 10. Caleb Russell and Mike Wachowski were still going at it for 11th, with Johnson just a few seconds off the pace. Midway through the 6th lap, and Baylor was back out front with Draper in 2nd as Davis had moved all the way up to the final podium position. Ashburn still ran in 4th, striking distance of the top 3 should a mistake occur. DeLong began to lose the leaders, rounding out the top 5 in the order. Barnes was still charging, moving up to 6th on track, as Grant Baylor had issues on the previous lap, dropping him all the way to 7th. Kelly, meanwhile, ran 8th, the points leader coming in was off the pace and losing points to his championship rival. Strang would move past Reardon, the 2 Australians rounding out the top 10 in the order, as Wachowski had moved around Caleb Russell, while Johnson ran close behind. Three miles before the white flag, and Davis had moved to the rear wheel of Stu Baylor, not giving an inch to breathe. Draper was still close behind in 3rd, with Ashburn chasing him from 4th, and DeLong still on the throttle, running 5th. Barnes ran all alone in the 6th spot on track, as Kelly moved back past and ailing Grant Baylor to get to 7th. Strang and Reardon were next in line, while Wachowski had moved himself into the top 10 for the first time in the race. Caleb Russell was next, but he was getting pressure from a recovering Brody Johnson. Grant Baylor, meanwhile, was still in the race, but out of contention. One lap to go, and Stu Baylor was leading the way over Grant Davis. Liam Draper, Jordan Ashburn, and Craig DeLong were still there as well, 5 riders all with a shot at the win. Barnes still ran a lonely 6th, while Kelly ran 7th with a slight gap over Strang, who had Reardon and Wachowski still chasing him to round out the top 10. Halfway through the final lap, calls were coming over the radio that Baylor, while running in 2nd, ran out of fuel just before pro pits. He would get his bike to his pit, get extra fuel, and carry on, but the damage had been done. When the checkered flag fell, Grant Davis claimed his 3rd overall victory of the season. Jordan Ashburn would fight through to take 2nd overall for the day, as Liam Draper would hold off Craig DeLong for the final spot on the podium. Cody Barnes would round out the top 5, while Ben Kelly had to fight all the way to the flag to hold off Josh Strang for 6th, as Mike Wachowski was right there to claim 8th. Gus Reardon would come through in 9th, with Caleb Russell rounding out the top 10.
Well, we come in after break with a new rule. They moved up the front line because we're even sitting in points, and you get yourself a good start, and then not a good start. And then you had to. This might be the first race you've had in a while that you've had to actually work for it and work all the way from the back to the front. So take us through it.
Yeah, for sure. I got a good start, and I'm like, well, at least I don't have to pass the rest of the XC1 field today. But then I went down. I'm like, what am I doing? And I went to pretty much last. Brody was behind me. Stopped in the woods, straightened my front end out, and then I'm like, all right, I got to get up to Ben and make some moves fast. So I tried really hard to get up to the front fast. And then I got around Ben. Me and him bumped a couple times, which is pretty funny, but got around him and then picked off the other guys and got up to Stu last lap there. And I was like, I gotta go for it. So I went for it and I passed him in the field section, and then I put my head down, pulled a little gap, and then just maintained it the rest of the race.
Well, talk about the track itself. You had the rain yesterday. Uh, did it tack up pretty well, or is it pretty deceiving with all the rain? Kind of like usual here.
It's like you got traction, then you don't. It's super weird. You have like a powder berm, and then you hit like a hard packed spot, and it's just like ice. But other than that, the track was pretty good today. It's definitely fast track for a 250. I will admit. I wish I had a 350 today, which would have been really nice.
Well, you got another one on the year, and you retook the points, and they go in with 3 rounds to go.
Yeah, I'm pumped on it. I got to keep this rolling and try to win this overall championship. Thank you.
Taking a look at the points with 3 rounds remaining in the series, Grant Davis takes back the championship points lead by 8 points over Ben Kelly. Gus Reardon still holds on to 3rd in the series standings, while Cody Barnes moves into 4th. Stu Baylor drops to 5th after the fuel miscalculation during the Buckwheat 100. Liam Draper still runs 6th, just 9 points out of the top 5, with Craig DeLong holding on to 7th in points. Jordan Ashburn, Caleb Russell, and Mike Wachowski round out the top 10. Thank you for watching, everyone. Round 11 of the 2025 Grand National Cross Country Series takes place September 20th and 21st in Beckley, West Virginia at the Summit Bechtel Reserve for the Mountaineer GNCC. I'll see you guys there.
Absolutely drenched. To the victors go the spoils. Everybody getting some. There it is.